The people who have loaned the U.S. government money, they actually think they're going to get paid back. No, they don't realize that they're just giving this money away. They actually think they're loans. And that's because they're not worried about the government's ability to pay, because the government has a printing press and can print all the dollars they want. Well, what they haven't figured out yet is, yes, the government can print all the dollars it wants, but it can't make those dollars buy anything. It can't ascribe purchasing power to the dollars. People just take it for granted that no matter how much money we print, you're going to be able to buy stuff with it. No, there is going to be a point where the dollar collapses and you can't buy very much with the dollar. In fact, it's possible that if we continue this indefinitely, that at the end, you won't be able to buy anything with the dollar. It will be completely worthless. Now, we may be able to stop it from getting that bad, but not without a tremendous amount of pain, which would be required to prevent that outcome. And, last week, consumer credit card debt hit an all-time record high, and total consumer indebtedness hit an all-time record high above $5 trillion for the first time. And remember, these are the same consumers who are on the hook to repay the national debt. These are the only people the American government can tax, and they're broke themselves, right? So you can't get blood from a stone, right? So it's all going to be from the printing press. But one of the things that I talked about on my podcast is that once you run up an amount of debt on your credit cards and you know that you can't pay it back, right? You've already come to that decision, hey, I'm never paying this money back. I'm going to just go bankrupt. Because when you go bankrupt, you just discharge all that debt, right? So once you've made that decision, right, okay, I'm just going to go bankrupt, your incentive between that point and your bankruptcy is to just build up the debt as high as you can. Right? So everything that you buy is free. Once you've made the decision, I owe $50,000, I can never repay it. I'm going to go bankrupt. Well, let me run it up to $60,000, $70,000. Let me borrow as much money as these idiot banks are willing to lend me. And then only when I run out of credit, only when I can't get one more credit card, I can't get one more loan, I'm totally out of credit, that's when I go and claim bankruptcy. So in the meantime, I'm going to get as much as I can because it's all free. All I have to do is pay the minimum interest payment. So I can borrow another $10,000. I just got to pay an extra $50 a week, right? Until they shut me down. So I think that's what's happening. I think a lot of Americans are willing to spend. It's not because they're resilient, just because it's all free. They don't care anymore what anything costs. I mean, they just want to get it or they need it. And so this is just the end of it. But at some point, these banks are going to cut people off and the losses are going to be horrific. That's another thing that the lenders are going to lose. They're going to lose on a lot of this credit card debt. We have record credit card debt. At the same time, we have record credit card interest rates. It's like higher interest rates haven't stopped people from borrowing. They keep on borrowing. That's why the Fed isn't winning. One of the reasons, the inflation fight, is inflation is also the expansion of credit. It's not just money, but credit, because credit acts as money. You can buy stuff with credit, and credit keeps expanding. Well, all these loans are going to go bad. Auto loans are going to go bad. What about all these people who have bought now to pay later? Who's financing all those things? They're never going to pay, right? I always said it was buy now, pay never. That's what was going on. And so all of this consumer credit is going to collapse, and the lenders, the banking system, this is another way they're going to lose. Every time we've had a problem, Congress and Wall Street and everybody have relied on the Fed to solve it. But the Fed doesn't solve problems. The Fed creates problems. All the problems that we're asking the Fed to solve, it created. And its solutions just make them bigger. But they also numb you to the pain, right? They allow you to kick the can down the road because the Fed doesn't have any magic. All it has is inflation. That's the only thing it can do. So its response to every problem is to create more inflation, to expand the money supply, right? To lower interest rates, to increase credit. And so now inflation has become the problem. People didn't mind inflation in the past because they didn't notice it as much, and because a lot of the inflation was making them richer because it pushed up their stock portfolios, it pushed up their real estate holding. But now the inflation is showing up more in the supermarket, at the gas station, everywhere. Prices are going up. They're going way up. This is the end result of all the inflation that the Fed has been creating for a decade or more. And it's just getting started. We are experiencing the tip of an inflation iceberg. It's not going back down to 2%. The Fed is delusional if it actually believes this. We're going to see much, much higher rates of inflation in the future than we've experienced in the recent past. And if the Fed tries to bail everybody out again, bail out the banking system from the problems we've been discussing, it's just going to throw gasoline on that inflation fire. You have competing forces. You have market forces, capitalism, which drives prices down, which is the beauty of capitalism. It helps living standards go up by bringing the cost of living down. That's why if you look at the CPI in 1900 and compare it to the CPI in 1800, prices are half what they were in 1900 than 1800. Prices were cut in half over 100 years because the free market was lowering prices. That is the natural tendency of prices in a capitalist economy. But when we went to a fiat money system with the introduction of the Fed in 1913, and now you have the Fed, an engine of inflation, the Fed is causing prices to go up by creating inflation. So you have two forces that work counter to one another. You have the free market pushing prices down, and you have the central bank and the government pushing prices up. Now, prices have gone up a lot since the introduction of the Federal Reserve because our money has lost 99% of its value since then. But imagine how much higher prices would be if it wasn't for productivity, which has been bringing prices down. But it's just that government, through inflation, has pushed them up even faster. Now, in some areas where the productivity is more extreme, like, tech, we've seen TV prices, computer prices, cell phone prices come down, right? Despite all this inflation. And that just means the productivity has been so strong that it's overcome the headwind of all the government-created inflation. But absent that inflation, TVs would be even cheaper, and computers would be even cheaper, and that would be a good thing. See, it's a lie that the government has told us that we need inflation, that prices have to go up, because if prices went down, the whole economy would collapse. That's just a lie. Everybody benefits from falling prices, including the businesses, because they make more money, because when prices go down, they sell more. People can afford to buy more stuff at lower prices. What businesses are concerned about is their margin, not the selling price. If the selling price goes down, but their costs go down more, that's a win. So falling prices are good. It's always been a lie that they're bad and that rising prices are necessary. Now, the question is, does AI have the potential to unleash such tremendous growth in productivity in an extremely short period of time that it's a get-out-of-jail-free card on a lot of these problems? Some people think so. I don't. I think it's going to take longer for all of the benefits of AI, to be realized, but they will over time. So sure, there are reasons to be optimistic because of the ingenuity of free people. But government has created a lot of problems that are going to blow up first. I mean, I think if it's a race, can AI save us before this thing explodes? And my guess would be no. I think we're gonna have to pay the piper. But the rebuilding, the recovery process could be made a lot easier with the assistance of AI. Deflation helps the Federal Reserve steal your productivity gains. Right? Because let's say my cost of living would have gone down by 10%. Well, that would have been good, right? If my health care was 10% cheaper and my food was 10% cheaper and my energy was 10% cheaper, if everything I needed to buy was 10% cheaper, hey, that's great. Now I got more money to buy other things. But if the government takes advantage of that and creates all this inflation, and prices go up by 2% instead, I've lost all those benefits that I never even knew I was going to get. That's why the government loves inflation. Because when the government taxes you, legitimately, when they actually take your money away from you and you see the money coming out of your paycheck every week, you could be pissed at all the money that you could have had, but that you don't because the government took it. So you know that. You lost money and you could get angry at the government. But when the government doesn't take your money, instead they just take your purchasing power and prices go up, you don't get mad at the government because you don't realize that the government is the reason your prices went up. You get mad at the guy that raised the prices. You get mad at the store. You get mad at the farmer or the oil company, or you get mad at Putin because you think he's the reason that prices are going up, or whatever. That serves the government's purpose. They get to steal your money, but you don't even know that they took it, right? And then they help you blame it on somebody else. But that's what the Fed is hoping for if they get bailed out with such a massive boom in productivity, that they get out of jail. Also what people have to understand is this is not happening in America in isolation. The whole world stands to benefit from increased productivity. And the question is, in that world, why does the dollar need to remain the reserve currency? See, that's the wild card because there's so many dollars that are held abroad and our economy is so screwed up as a result of relying on this huge subsidy where we can consume without producing, where we can borrow without savings and have this whole consumer-based, bubble economy built on this foundation of the dollar being the reserve currency when that status could be lost, any day. And the AI, revolution may in fact accelerate the demise of the dollar. I mean, we've already accelerated ourselves by weaponizing it and creating additional political incentives in addition to the economic incentives to de-dollarize. So that happening too, I don't see how, AI would save us from that.